In the far reaches of the Galactic Federation, language is more than communication, it's survival. Dr. Zara Okafor, xenolinguist and diplomat, has spent her life decoding alien tongues and building bridges between worlds. But now, something ancient has awakened, something that speaks not in words but in silence. 3 stations have gone dark, their last message. The words are wrong, the silence is coming. The translation matrix is failing, and the future of every intelligent species may depend on what Zara finds next. Dr. Zara Okafor pressed her palm against the cool metal wall of research station Kepler 442b, feeling the subtle vibrations of the massive translation, computers humming 3 levels below. Through the observation deck's reinforced viewport, the binary sunset painted the alien landscape in shades of copper and violet, a sight that still took her breath away after 2 years stationed here. Another 14 hours of beep-bloop whistle from the Andromedans, and I'm going to lose what's left of my sanity, she muttered in Yoruba, then switched to Mandarin.
为什么这些外星人不能使用简单的语言?
The translation matrix on her wrist buzzed with an incoming priority transmission. Zara frowned as director Sarah Chen's holographic image materialized, her usually composed features tight with concern. Zara, we have a situation. 3 research stations have gone dark in the past 48 hours, Proxima Base, Titan Research Facility, and New Geneva Station. All were working on Project Babel. Project Babel, the ambitious attempt to create a universal translation protocol between humans and the 17 known alien species in the Galactic Federation. Zara had contributed the foundational work on Kethari musical linguistics 2 years ago. Equipment failure, Zara asked, though her gut already knew the answer. Negative, each station sent identical final transmissions. The words are wrong, the silence is coming. Then nothing. A chill ran down Zara's spine. She'd heard whispers about translation matrices causing psychological breaks in researchers, but 3 stations simultaneously. And there's more, Director Chen continued. Each station had been working on decoding a recently discovered alien artifact, something called the Rosetta Codex. We need you to investigate Proxima Base. Your expertise in xenolinguistic patterns makes you our best hope of understanding what happened. Zara shook her head, unconsciously switching to Japanese.
それは不合理だ.
I'm in the middle of breakthrough research with the Kethari empathic resonance patterns. This could wait. Dr. Okafor. Chen's voice cut through her protests. 17 billion Federation citizens depend on interspecies communication. If something is systematically destroying our translation capabilities, we're looking at the collapse of galactic civilization. The weight of those words settled on Zara's shoulders like lead. She'd spent her entire career building bridges between species, but the idea of investigating what might be tearing them down filled her with dread. I need time to consider this, Zara said, adding the tremor in her voice. My current research. You have 6 hours to prepare. The Hermes departs for Proxima Base at 800 tomorrow. Zara, Chen's expression softened slightly. I wouldn't ask if anyone else could do this. The hologram flickered out, leaving Zara alone with the binary sunset and a growing sense that her comfortable research life was about to end. The next morning found Zara reluctantly boarding the sleek research vessel Hermes, her stomach churning with equal parts space sickness medication and anxiety. She'd barely finished loading her translation equipment when 2 familiar figures approached. Thought you could use some backup, said Commander Yuki Ibarra, her Ethiopian accent warm despite her military bearing. The security chief's presence was both comforting and concerning. If Tank was here, the situation was more serious than Chen had let on. Behind her walked Dr. Kai Nakamura, Zara's former research partner, carrying a massive data core. I've been analyzing the transmission patterns from the lost stations, he said without preamble. There are mathematical anomalies in the linguistic structures that shouldn't exist. What kind of anomalies? Zara asked, grateful for the familiar routine of scientific inquiry. The syntax degradation follows a Fibonacci sequence, but in reverse. It's like watching language evolve backwards, which is theoretically impossible. Their conversation was interrupted by a melodious trill that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Whistle Song of Dawn descended from the ship's upper levels, their 4 arms spread wide in the Kethari greeting of trust. "Friend Zara who speaks our hearts," Wise sang in their native tongue, which Zara's implants translated in real time. The Council of Voices has felt disturbances in the song streams between stars, dead zones where meaning goes to die. Zara had worked closely with Wise for months, and she'd never heard such concern in their musical voice. In Kethari culture, communication was sacred. If they were worried about threats to interspecies language, the danger was real. As the Hermes entered hyperspace, Zara found herself in the ship's research lab with her team, poring over data from the lost stations. The binary code streams showed normal patterns right up until the final minutes, when everything began to unravel. "Look at this," Kai said, highlighting a section of code on the main display. The translation matrices didn't fail, they were rewritten. Someone or something systematically corrupted the linguistic databases. Tank leaned over his shoulder, frowning. "Sabotage." "More than that," Wise warbled, their feathers rippling with agitation. "This pattern, it resembles the void speech from our oldest warnings, language that unmakes itself." Zara felt her hands begin to shake as she stared at the data. She dedicated her life to building understanding between species, and now someone was deliberately destroying that understanding. But who would want to sever the bonds that held galactic civilization together? "There's something else," she said quietly, calling up her own research files. "I've been tracking linguistic drift patterns across Federation space. I thought it was natural evolution, but..." She overlaid her data with the corruption patterns from the lost stations. "It's been systematic. Someone has been subtle altering translation protocols for months." The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If the corruption was this widespread, every conversation between species could be compromised. Misunderstandings could escalate into conflicts, trade agreements could collapse, and the delicate peace of the Federation could shatter. As if sensing her thoughts, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "This is Captain Morrison. We're approaching Proxima Base. Initial scans show the station is intact, but there's something wrong with their broadcast signals. Dr. Okafor, you need to see this." On the main view screen, Proxima Base hung in space like a dark jewel against the red dwarf's glow. But instead of the usual identification signals, the station was broadcasting something else. A complex pattern of tones and frequencies that made Zara's translation implants buzz with static. "It's beautiful," Wise whispered, their feathers shifting to deep purple. "And terrible, it's singing the song of unmaking." Zara realized with growing horror that she was looking at her first real glimpse of the enemy, and it was using the very languages she'd spent her life studying as a weapon. The docking bay of Proxima Base was a tomb of silence. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red, and their footsteps echoed with the hollow sound of an abandoned space. Zara's team moved carefully through corridors that should have bustled with researchers and technicians. "Biosigns show the crew is alive," Tank reported, scanning her tactical display. "But they're all gathered in the central research lab, no movement for the past 18 hours. They found them there, 37 researchers and staff standing motionless around a crystalline artifact the size of a small shuttle. The Rosetta Codex pulsed with internal light, and those nearest to it swayed slightly, as if listening to unheard music. "My God," Kai breathed, "they're catatonic." But Zara noticed something worse. The researchers' lips were moving, all of them speaking in perfect synchronization, but no sound emerged. She activated her translation matrix and immediately wished she hadn't. The device produced a feedback squeal that dropped her to her knees. "Friend Zara," Wise caught her with 2 arms while their other pair signed frantically. "Do not listen taste the void song. It seeks to silence kill all meaning." Tank was already pulling up security footage on a nearby terminal. Look at this. Timestamp shows the artifact activated 63 hours ago. The crew gathered voluntarily. They haven't eaten, haven't slept, just watched. On the screens, they saw the hypnotic power of the Codex unfold. As it awakened, its alien harmonics had called to every translator and xenolinguist on the station. One by one, they'd abandoned their posts to stand in its presence, their minds slowly emptied of the capacity for language itself. It's not just a translation device, Zara realized with growing horror. It's an anti-translation device. It's designed to destroy language at the neurological level. That's when the lights went out. In the emergency illumination that followed, shapes moved in the shadows, figures in environmental suits emerging from hidden alcoves around the research lab. The trapped researchers continued their silent vigil, oblivious to the new arrivals. Dr. Okafor. The voice came through the station's communication system, cultured and confident. I'd hoped we could avoid this confrontation, but your research has made that impossible. A man stepped into the light, tall, pale, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. Zara recognized him from Federation diplomatic files. Voss Tyne, former ambassador to 3 alien species, missing for 16 months. Director Tyne, she said, we thought you were dead. Dead to the old world, yes. Reborn to a higher purpose. His eyes gleamed with fanatic fervor. Do you know what I learned during my years as a diplomat, Dr. Okafor? Every conversation with an alien species changes us. Every translated word rewrites human consciousness. We're being slowly conquered by the very act of understanding them. Tank had her weapon drawn, but Tyne's people had them surrounded. Worse, some of the catatonic researchers were beginning to stir, turning vacant eyes toward the intruders. You're insane, Zara said. Language is what makes us human. Communication is. Communication is infection, Tyne interrupted. The Codex showed me the truth. It's a weapon from a dead civilization, the progenitors who understood that language itself is a virus that spreads between minds. They created this to cleanse themselves, but used it too late. We won't make their mistake. The crystalline artifact pulsed brighter, and Zara felt something trying to worm its way into her mind. A terrible silence that wanted to devour every word she'd ever known. The Federation stations were tests, Tyne continued. Now we'll use the Codex to broadcast its effect across all Federation space. Within days, alien tongues will mean nothing to human ears. We'll be free of their influence forever. You'll destroy everything, Kai shouted. Billions will die without interspecies cooperation. A necessary sacrifice for human purity. Wise suddenly burst into song, not their usual melodious tones, but a harsh, discordant war cry that made the Codex's light flicker. The Void Singers, they trilled. As in the old tales, they seek the great silence. That's when everything went wrong. The artifact's pulse strengthened, and the catatonic researchers turned as one toward Zara's team. But more terrifying was watching Kai suddenly stop mid-sentence, his eyes going blank as the silence claimed his mind. Kai, Zara lunged toward her friend, but Tank caught her arm. We have to go, Tank said. Now. As they fought their way toward the exit, Zara saw Tyne activate a massive transmission array. The Rosetta Codex's malevolent song began broadcasting into deep space, racing toward Federation worlds at faster-than-light speeds. The silence was coming for everyone, and they were running out of time to stop it. Back aboard the Hermes, Zara stared at the unconscious form of Dr. Kai Nakamura in the medical bay. The ship's doctor had sedated him to stop the violent convulsions that had begun when they'd pulled him away from the Codex. But his brain's scans showed devastating damage to the language centers. How long before the transmission reaches Federation space? Tank asked. 6 hours to the nearest colonies, Zara said, her voice hollow. 18 hours to Earth. Wise perched nearby, their feathers a deep morning blue. In the old songs, the Void speakers could only be stopped by the first song, the language that came before all others. But that knowledge was lost when my people left the home trees. Zara looked up sharply. What if it wasn't lost? What if we've been carrying pieces of it all along? She called up her research on Kethari empathic resonance, cross-referencing it with the mathematical patterns Kai had discovered. The original work they'd been doing before this nightmare suddenly took on new significance. Every species in the Federation developed language independently, she said, thinking out loud. But what if there's something deeper, a proto-linguistic structure that exists in all consciousness? The song beneath all songs, Wise whispered, understanding dawning in their large eyes. Tank looked between them. Are you talking about fighting an anti-language with a meta-language? Exactly. Zara's fingers flew over her console, pulling together fragments of research from dozens of species. If the Codex destroys meaning by unraveling linguistic structures, maybe we can counter it with the fundamental pattern that underlies all communication. She worked feverishly, pulling elements from Kethari musical syntax, human mathematical linguistics, even the quantum resonance patterns of crystalline entity communication. But something was missing, the binding element that would make it all coherent. That's when Kai stirred in his medical berth. His eyes opened, unfocused and struggling, and when he spoke, it wasn't in any human language. The sounds were alien yet familiar, mathematical yet organic. The Codex, he whispered, and Zara realized that in trying to erase his linguistic centers, the artifact had accidentally exposed something deeper. I can hear the pattern underneath, the first equation of meaning. With Kai's damaged but insightful mind guiding them, Zara and Wise began weaving together the deepest linguistic elements they could find. It was like assembling a puzzle where every piece was from a different box, but somehow they belonged together. It's working, Tank reported from the communications station. But Tyne's transmission is already reaching the outer colonies. We're getting reports of translation matrix failures across 3 star systems. Zara's hands trembled as she made the final connections in her metalinguistic construct. It was beautiful, a pattern that seemed to capture the essence of communication itself. But would it be enough? There's only one way to test it, she said. We have to get back to the source. The return to Proxima Base was a nightmare of overlapping transmission signals. The Codex had grown stronger, its anti-linguistic field now extending beyond the station itself. Ships throughout the system reported communication failures as the silence spread like a plague. I'm reading massive system failures across Federation space, Tank reported grimly. Trade computers can't process alien languages, diplomatic channels are going dark, and there are reports of conflicts breaking out in mixed species colonies. Zara watched her life's work crumble in real time. But as the Hermes approached the research station, she activated her counter-transmission. The metalinguistic patterns she, Kai, and Wise had constructed from the fundamental elements of communication itself. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Codex's pulsing light flickered, and through the viewports, they could see the catatonic researchers beginning to stir. More importantly, the cascade of translation failures across Federation space began to reverse as the first song overwrote the silence. It's working, Wise sang, their feathers brilliant with joy. The song beneath songs is stronger than the void. But their victory was short-lived. Tyne's voice crackled over the communication system, distorted with rage. You don't understand what you've done. Every alien word they speak changes us. We're losing our humanity. Through the station's cameras, they watched Tyne frantically working to boost the Codex's power, his followers still trapped in their fanatic devotion to the silence. The artifact began to pulse with dangerous intensity, fighting against Zara's countersignal. The resonance cascade is destabilizing, Kai warned, his voice still strangely musical from his exposure to the deeper linguistic patterns. If it continues, it could shatter both signals permanently. Zara realized what they had to do. We need to get inside the station and modify my transmission from the source. Harmonize it directly with the Codex instead of fighting it. Tank shook her head. That's suicide. The anti-linguistic field will fry your brain. Not if I don't try to think in words, Zara said, her mind racing. Wise, your people communicate in musical mathematics. Can you teach me to think in pure pattern? What followed was the strangest crash course in xenolinguistics Zara had ever experienced. As they docked with the research station, Wise taught her to structure her thoughts in harmonic progressions rather than verbal concepts. It was like learning to breathe underwater, unnatural and terrifying, but possible. They fought their way through corridors filled with Tyne's increasingly desperate followers, reaching the research lab just as the Codex began to crack from the strain of containing two conflicting linguistic signals. "You're too late," Tyne screamed, his own mind clearly affected by prolonged exposure to the artifact. "The silence will claim everything." But Zara was already at the transmission controls, her thoughts flowing in mathematical harmonies rather than words. She reached out to the Codex not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a broken instrument to be tuned. The artifact's purpose became clear. It wasn't meant to destroy language, but to purify it, to strip away harmful distortions and return communication to its essential truth. The progenitors hadn't destroyed themselves with silence. They'd ascended to a higher form of meaning. Working in concert with the ancient device, Zara wove her metalinguistic pattern through the Codex's crystalline structure. Instead of canceling each other out, the two signals began to harmonize, creating something unprecedented. A universal translator that worked not by converting between languages, but by speaking directly to the consciousness that underlies all communication. Tyne collapsed as his mind was finally freed from the distorted silence that had consumed him. Around the galaxy, the cascade of translation failures reversed itself. But more than that, for the first time in Federation history, true understanding flowed between species without the barriers of linguistic interpretation. "The song is complete," Wise trilled, their voice joining a harmony that now included Zara's thoughts, Kai's mathematical intuitions, and even the wordless understanding of the former saboteurs. 3 months later, Zara stood once again on the observation deck of Research Station Kepler 442b. But now the view included delegations from species across the galaxy. The metalinguistic breakthrough had transformed the Federation from a collection of cooperating civilizations to something approaching a true collective consciousness. Her translation matrix chimed softly, not with an incoming message, but with something new. The device had evolved, like everyone else's, into something that facilitated pure understanding rather than mere translation. "Any regrets?" Tank asked, joining her at the viewport. Zara smiled, letting her thoughts flow in the musical mathematics Wise had taught her, feeling them resonate with the consciousness of every being on the station. Only that it took us so long to learn that the real universal language was understanding itself. In the distance, the binary sunset painted the sky in colors that now carried meaning beyond the merely visual, a poetic statement in the new language that connected all conscious minds. The silence had been defeated not by noise, but by the discovery that true communication transcended words entirely. As the stars emerged in the alien sky, Zara felt the vast harmony of galactic civilizations singing around her, and knew that humanity had not just found its place among the stars, but had helped create something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The age of translation was over. The age of understanding had begun. Thank you for listening to Quantum Tongues, an audio story production by the Narrative Core. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. Our goal is to give you entertaining stories. Also, consider our sister channel, Whimsical Node, another channel of high-quality audio stories. Until then.